Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss book 3 in the Tristan Strong series, Tristan Strong Keeps Punching by Kwame Mbalia. I butcher his name every time. I apologize every time. This came out October 2021, fairly new, about a month and a half old. Finally finished it. It took me a while, but I'm blown away with this book, specifically out of all three. The first one I absolutely loved. It reminded me a lot of Alice in Wonderland meets Wonderful Wizard of Oz, like bringing us to a land, and then that land has issues, and we learn that Alk is a story, not a place. That translates into the second book, which was okay. It wasn't as great as the first one, but then this one was outstanding, specifically because of how mad I was while reading it. And I hated this book because of how mad I was while reading it, but hate that I got so mad, but then in reality, I actually do love it. So it's I don't know how to explain that love-hate thing, because I love this book. This book is very important. And I say that because of the title page, not the title page, but the dedication page literally says, "To the Angry." And throughout this book, it's extremely pertinent. Ooh, perfect word for that. Pertinent as to a reflection of our current society. Critical race theory is trying to be abolished in numerous Republican states. And what that means is that the white people in charge are trying to get rid of all of the stories of the black people. So everyone who fought for rights, everyone who marched for equality, for basic human rights, every time there was a massacre of black people by white people, we're just trying to eradicate that history. They're trying to erase history. And it's frustrating. It's super frustrating, and people are mad. That's why I hated this book so much, in the sense of I hated how disgusted I am with my fellow Caucasians because of how many people, specifically in the Midwest and the South, are trying to eradicate the history of the black folk, of the African American folk. From the slavery time to when the Underground Railroad was happening during the Civil War to freedom, but like Juneteenth had to come about, June 19th had to come about 2 years after the Civil War ended. That way, the slaves that were still forced to work on plantations in Texas finally got, hey, like the war ended, you've been free for 2 years, but like you've still been working for free. So like, time to move on. The migration of folks, we get history of Chicago in this, like how black people from the South were traveling north to Chicago to start anew. It was a trade post from the Native Americans back in the day, the first people. Then it became a trade post and a meeting ground of trade routes, basically, for all different people from all different walks of life. So this book is so important. And while I'm reading it, I just kept going, man, if a Republican finds this book, they're going to try to ban their kids from reading it. And it made me mad. It made me mad. It made me angry. To the angry. I'm angry because of how idiotic this country has become, that they're trying to get rid of the history of individuals who have been persecuted for hundreds of years. This country was built on blood, and to pretend that it's all been happy-go-lucky, this is why I hate Thanksgiving, it's not. We celebrate genocide on Thanksgiving. I'm not a fan of that. We as in the Republican-led states are trying to get rid of history, and it's frustrating. And one passage from this book, I'm gonna read it because Tristan really, this 13-year-old who's got he's got some awesome gloves now, like they are black flames, and like he's beating the crap out of all these different haints, evil spirits. Like King Cotton's back, Patty Roller is stealing kids' souls, and like Tristan and company are trying to therefore go from New Orleans to Memphis to St. Louis to up to Chicago, as the story progresses up the Mississippi, basically, to save the kids, to defeat this, plantation prison Angola that, is just evil, bad stuff, right? Bad stuff. Tristan fights off King Cotton and saves the day, and, all his friends of Alk are now going all to the same middle school in Chicago. There's our summary. We get a beautiful map at the end, right? Okay. So, in the meantime, all of this stuff with Gun Baby and things like that, I circled the page. I don't normally do that, but let me circle the page, because I got heated, bro. I was heated, because I was like, this is accurate. Like, it's accurate. Okay, page 351. Okay. Well, 350 to 351. Cotton stopped and glared at them. You still running around trying to save a world that left you behind? A world that don't care if you go missing? You see any of these folks rushing down here to help? They don't care. Just a bunch of vultures here for the show. That's a lie, I said, right? Then why haven't you heard of any of the history you done dug up? Because nobody cares, that's why. Bury it and build over it. That's the move. You don't know what you're talking about, I shouted. I isn't Tristan. But his words ate at me. The slave trading in New Orleans, the plantation that was turned into a prison, the riots in Memphis and National City. Was it true no one cared? Why didn't everyone shout about these stories in school, or turn victories into holidays, or put them on t-shirts and sing about them in songs, or make movies about them? Was that history not important enough? Ayana let go of my arm and stepped forward. Ayana, the princess of Al, let go of my arm, stepped forward. Her eyes narrowed as she stared at Cotton. She looked him up and down. Her lips pursed. Cotton eyed her back. You got a question, darling? She sniffed. More of a comment. She turned to me. He's stolen. And then the plot thickens. But it's true. Why does no one care? Or why does not enough people care? Why is a certain particular group of people trying to get rid of stories? Why are they trying to not acknowledge the people before them? They were natives to this country before the Europeans came to it, right? It's the best way to say that. Why did the Trail of Tears happen in a government issued thing to march the first people out of their tribes, out of their tribal family lands? Why? It was because they wanted the manifest destiny, coast to coast. This is what we're taught in school. I'm a millennial, right? My textbooks in elementary school, in middle school, in high school were written by white people. And you can tell that by looking back, because I didn't learn any of this stuff. I didn't learn about the Memphis, race massacre. I didn't learn about those riots. I didn't learn about Chicago. I didn't learn about different things. It was mentioned, the Trail of Tears. It was like glossed over, like the riots in the South for, black rights. It was referenced, oh, Rosa Parks didn't stand up for her, from her bus seat, all the little things, like Martin Luther King Jr. marched on a bridge, right? That's all we got. We didn't get like in-depth stuff. We learned about Christopher Columbus. He discovered the world. No. I hate fake history. Hate it. There's a difference between fictitious history, which is entertaining when you like putting different spins on things. Like there's always a different version of who killed John F. Kennedy, right? We see that in numerous sci-fi films all the time. That's different. That's like science fiction history. Alternative history is when you change the actual facts of history. I don't like that. You have to look at the facts, you have to acknowledge the facts, and you have to deal with the facts. You can't pretend that things didn't happen when they happened. So, in regards to Tristan Strong keeps punching, this boy keeps punching. He is a badass 13-year-old who is so defeated and so hurt by so many people for so long that he realizes he has to keep punching. He sacrifices himself to, he's not dead, but it's referenced he's dead, but he's not dead because it's Tristan Strong. He can't die. He defeats King Cotton by literally burning him up with his anger. And that brings us to the point. Sometimes you got to keep punching. Physically keep punching. Sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. And a lot of the things that we were taught as kids is use your words. No, some people don't respond to words. Sometimes you got to keep punching. So, Kwame Mbalia, I apologize for mispronouncing your name all the time. Thank you for this trilogy. Whether or not there's more Tristan Strong books in the future, of course you left it open, but I am very excited. I cannot wait. Thank you for this particular third book, because it pissed me off so much as to how disgusting this country is. How they are trying to forget, how the country itself is trying to forget so many things. But on the flip side, so many people, I as one of them, are so enraged to try to make people understand that history cannot be erased. You have to look at the historical facts to move forward. So, the past is the past, right? The present is now. What's next? How do we keep moving forward? We're going to use a line from Walt Disney, right? How do we keep moving forward? If Tristan Strong keeps punching, He punched. He defeated King Cotton, right? King Cotton's gone. Now what? Tristan's starting middle school with his friends. And Elsie's now their teacher. Now what? So, us as a country, now what? If we keep getting all of these different political crap constantly, right? Now what? We vote. It's the only way to do that. But if the Republicans are trying to disenfranchise certain groups of individuals and gerrymandering is taking place, how do we keep voting? You keep punching. You keep punching. The way to punch in this particular situation is to go out and vote. It is your right as an American to vote. Use your voice. Vote. There will never be change unless you put your foot forward and keep punching. Vote. Go vote. It's the only way to change. It's the only way for things to change. It's the only way for things to get better. I've seen what this country can become. Anytime you go to Times Square, you hear 80 billion different, all right, there's not 80 billion, but you hear 80 different languages at the same time. And you just stop. And you just turn and you listen and you're like, okay, none of these people look like me. Like, everyone's speaking different languages. You got people cheering for soccer teams that have no relevance in New York, but it's Times Square. It's the crossroads of the world. That's America. When you stand in the middle of Times Square and you just stop and you listen to hear so many different languages being sung and spoken and shouted out at the same time for all these different people from all over the world are here in that moment. That's what America is supposed to be. Now to moving forward. So much horrible stuff has happened in this country to the Native people, to the Black people. What can we do next moving forward? I did not plan on this to be a whole preachy kind of let me just share my thoughts aspect of race. But this is what is incredible about books. It gets you to think. You read something, you're like, I'm curious. You look it up, and you're like, wow, why did I never learn about that? It's very interesting when you start to read. You get transported to a different world, yes, but you learn and you understand. We are all just bags of meat with the same gooey red juices on the inside. The faster people learn that, the easier it will to be amongst our neighbors. One world, one community. That's it. That's all I got. Okay, Tristan Strong keeps punching Kwame Mbalia. Incredible book. It's going to make you angry. I promise you, it's going to make you angry, but you're going to love it because of how angry you are and of how you're going to go out and change the world. Keep punching. Mucho mahalo.